Hello, everyone. Welcome to our April 30th version of Telepracticing. We are delighted to have another wonderful training by Integrated Speech Solutions. It looks like we're going to have Kim Santoro, Karen Honor, Ria, and Sally presenting today. So thank you guys so much for taking the time and helping us with all of our challenges with telepracticing.
Thank you, Libby. Hello, everyone. Today's telepracticing is all about targeting pragmatics via teletherapy. So we have recruited some experts, Kim Santoro and Karen Hainer, who are going to talk about pragmatics from different age perspectives. But as you'll hear them talk, you'll find out that a lot of these things can be used even across different age groups. So should be lots of ideas and things for you to utilize in your teletherapy. So I am going to turn it over to Kim, who I believe will be presenting first.
Hello, everybody. I'm Kim Santoro, and I am going to be presenting today. I'm going to be talking about the elementary aged children from preschool until grade 8. On my caseload, I do have lots of preschoolers, and I have all grades up until age 6. This year, I don't have any 7th or 8th graders. Last year, I did. So we're just going to go and talk about the resources that we can target our pragmatic goals via telepractice. We're going to give you some tips on preparing for your sessions with your students, facilitators, and also the communication with your teachers and parents. So the purpose of this presentation, we're going to, like Ria had said, we're going to be dividing it into 2 pieces. Elementary is what I will be talking about, and then middle school and high school will be what Karen will be talking about in a few minutes. So we will get started with my first slide. And it's just going to give you an overview of what we mean when we talk about pragmatics and social communication. So there are 3 components of social communication, and one is the ability to use language for different purposes, to greet somebody, to inform somebody, to give somebody a demand, a command, and also request items and things that we need. Number 2 would be the ability to adapt language to meet the needs of our listener and the situation that we're engaging in. So sometimes you might have to talk louder if there's a lot of noise, or you may have to talk differently versus like a child versus an adult. Number 3 is following the often unspoken rules of communication, rules of conversation and storytelling, such as the ability to turn take, looking at the speaker, maintaining that topic, not abruptly changing that topic inappropriately, the ability for us to use correct facial expressions and gestures. And of course, we have to keep in consideration that rules of conversation can often be different across cultures. It is important for the person to quickly understand the rules of the person with whom we are communicating with. And we also know, and I have quite a few kids that do have ASD, and we do know that this can be difficult for ASD children and young children in general. Therefore, obviously our job as SLPs is to encourage and educate the children on ways how to communicate effectively with peers, teachers, even out in the community, and anybody that they contact in their everyday environment. We want to make sure that we give them these good components and instruct them how to be appropriate when they're speaking. So there are some building blocks that we need to develop our social communication. There are 5 that I'm going to be addressing very quickly. We know that receptive language is how we comprehend language. Are we able to follow directions? Are we able to understand questions? Are we able to sequence and follow steps? And then there's the expressive language piece. How do we use our speech? Do we use sign language? Do we just use pointing and gestures, or do we have a speech generating device? I have a few kids that do have a speech generating device. So I use that quite frequently in my sessions. This third one I actually think is very important. I would actually top this off before receptive language. And it's those pre-language skills, like the pre-linguistic skills that we talk about, such as being able to appropriately play with a toy, understanding the function of an object. Those are also, I think, really important skills that some of our kids need to learn in order for them to be able to communicate and kind of climb that ladder. You start off with those pre-linguistic skills, and then you go to receptive, and then there's expressive, and then there's the executive function. And it's kind of like a ladder. You need each step in order to be successful. So then we go to executive functioning. That's our higher order of reasoning and how we're thinking, how we're coping. That goes into self-regulation, our coping strategies. How can we teach these kids how to manage change? How do we keep them to maintain the topic and not change it inappropriately? We also have to maybe teach them to be aware of other people's emotions and their behaviors and how to read that in a social situation. So now we'll go into the transition of our therapy session. So there are a lot of ways that we can obviously encourage social communication in elementary school kids. One of my favorite things to do is having a peer group. It is a lot of fun. You never know what the topic's going to be like sometimes. Sometimes it can change on a dime and you just have to go with it. That's one thing I like about language, is that you can pretty much pull language anywhere in your environment. I mean, you could find any topic, anything that you can talk about with what's around you. So the peer group, the main goal is obviously to have fun. I like to you have to have more than two. I like to use 2 to 4 students. We encourage language through role playing with their interests. So I always make sure I ask them, what do you like? What don't you like? We engage their favorite characters, music, games. I use a lot of music in my sessions. That's one of my favorite things to do. And these are just some of the topics, and you can use any topic you want. I just put a lot of topics that I have covered over the past school year. So, encouraging and asking a friend to play, protesting when someone takes something away from you, encouraging, like, it's okay to share, but you need to ask. You just can't grab from somebody. Requesting and responding to someone's request, gaining attention before you request something. Introducing and responding to introductions, asking for help, responding to requests for help, showing something or making a comment on another child's play. We do this a lot. We have a lot of fun games that we play in our sessions. And I do have a facilitator who is absolutely wonderful. I'm blessed with that this year, and I was blessed with that last year. She really helps me out and gets the kids to engage. I also use some of the classroom teacher aides that really want to come in. Some of them will ask you, like, can I come in and observe? And I really want to learn how you do this, and I could carry it into the classroom. So by all means, if someone asks to come in, my door is open, please come in. So I use them a lot to help the kids engage, and I kind of give them the directive, and then the facilitator will take that and encourage the kid to, how do we ask appropriately to play with a toy? And we use that role modeling and video modeling. This is one I think is a little bit tricky for some of the younger kids, is asking and answering those WH questions. We do address that quite frequently. The kids are pretty good with offering a toy to another child. They're usually very willing to share. And then you can use a variety of strategies to perpetuate play and interactions. Like I had said, I use music. YouTube and I are like really good friends, and I will put on a video of a song I know that they really like, and we'll sing and dance and get everybody, around the circle to do something. And also sometimes we play like a physical social game to get the kids up and moving. So sometimes we'll play Simon Says. Sometimes we've played Duck, Duck, Goose. Tag, I know I put tag there. That can be a little bit tricky because then the kids start running around and then you kind of have to rein them in. So that's where the facilitator or the teacher's aide is very, very helpful. So the next slide. So like I had mentioned prior, some of the ideas that I use is I always start with like an opening song. We do a hello song, a how are you song. Sometimes I like to do a days of the week song for my younger kids because sometimes I feel like they might not know like where they are in space or orientation. So we'll go over that pretty quickly, the days of the week song, and then we'll address like what's today, what's gonna, what are you gonna have for lunch today? It's raining outside today. We'll talk about the weather. Oh, so that means you're gonna have inside recess and you're not gonna go out on the playground. So that's kind of how I open up the group. And then I do a lot of social stories. That's going to be coming in the next couple of slides, video modeling and also demonstrations. And that demonstration comes from me. It can come from the other kids. It can come from the facilitator because we're all working as a team in these groups. And that's when we practice that role playing, going back and forth, answering and asking questions. At the end, I do have some websites to share. Oh, what happened there? I don't know what happened. Excuse me. Sorry. I hit that button by accident. So one of the things I like to do when I'm leading a peer group is I want everybody to be involved, just not the kids that are in my group, but the teachers, the parents, sometimes the other therapists. Like I have found that in my area of expertise and my experience, the OT is my best friend. Speech and OT go so hand in hand together. Sometimes you can really pull that person in and kind of help you with your peer groups. But I do like to give the information to the teachers. I do call the parents. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll just make up my own little worksheet of saying, I saw your kid today. This is how long I saw them. This is what we talked about today. This is how we talked about it and what we did. If you want to practice that at home whenever time permits, I would be very grateful for that. And I do have nice communication with the parents, so they know that they can call or email me anytime if they have any questions. So when I start the peer group and I keep that going, that next session, we review the topic that we talked about. I might just let the kids have some free play and I observe and I take notes and see like, are they utilizing the skills? Are they generalizing it? Because a lot of times you'll see kids, they're in your therapy room and they're very successful because they are really following your model. They're following their peer models. But once that therapy door opens, sometimes they just kind of forget that they can use those skills outside of your classroom. So that's kind of why I really feel it's important to really engage the teachers so that they know, what we're working on and they can also piggyback on that. And then also we need to know what's going on in their classroom. So that might be a peer discussion that we can talk about. There might be a lesson on, there might be a letter of the week that you can pull that into your peer group. And there's your phonemic awareness skills of, oh, this is the letter, this is what it sounds like. Let's all take a turn coming up with a word that begins with that B sound, if the B is the letter of the week. So it's really nice to, I kind of work as a team. I'm not solo. Even though I'm the only one on this TV screen, I am not solo in this area. We have to work as a team and involve everybody. And like I said before, I'm a real believer in, utilizing those teacher aides and my facilitator to encourage these kids to carry that skill outside of my room. So then this is where I talked about social stories prior. I mentioned it. I love using social stories. So I usually go with what Carol Gray has developed. She has a website that it is wonderful. There are so many things on her website. You could spend so much time going through all these different things that she has to offer. So she has a specific way that she develops her social stories, and I have kind of adopted that. I went to, oh geez, I don't even know. It was so long ago. One of her conferences way back. And I got to hear her, and she let us do like some examples with the other therapists in the room, and it was really helpful. And ever since then, I've been using social stories ever since, and I find them very successful, especially working with the younger kids and getting them kind of to understand the rules of language. But this is what she recommends. She recommends that social stories include descriptive sentences and directive sentences. She also feels that you should write 2 descriptive sentences for every directive sentence that is included. She also says that she feels that sentences that describe can be factual sentences, perspective sentences, cooperative sentences, and affirmative sentences. So on the side here, I kind of give these examples of what she means. So we know that a descriptive and a factual sentence is just pretty much like, I ride a bus to school. We know that that's what kids do every day. That's a fact. Perspective sentence. Sometimes I get upset when I ride the bus. That's that child saying that to you. It's their perspective. The cooperative sentence. When I get upset, my friends can give me some space. An affirmative sentence. Staying calm on the bus is good. And then here are the sentences that directed can be directive. So the directive sentence, you want to guide the child. I may ask the bus driver's aid for help. A control sentence, which would be written by the child. If I get upset, I can always listen to my music. So those are just some of the ways I kind of develop my social story. And I have quite a few. I have them laminated and saved in a folder, and I use them all the time. And if I don't have a really good social story for something that comes up new, then that's when I take the kid and we make our own. So I just gave this an example since we were all in this pandemic together. And the kids came back to school, like, how can we stay safe when we are at school? So it just gives you little examples of some of the sentences that Carol Gray had recommended, but you pick your topic and you prepare the story. I always engage the kids. I don't make these stories up myself. We do this together. You begin to write the text, and it kind of like a rough draft. You're just going to start typing with what these kids are telling you, what you're observing in this group, and then you just go from there. So you begin, oops, sorry, my mouse is very sensitive. So you begin to write the text, and remember to include those 2 descriptive sentences for every 1 directive sentence. If possible, like I said, involve the children in the creation of the social story, which sometimes can be difficult for them. So what I usually do, if they're not as verbal, they pick out all the pictures. So then that picture that they pick out has meaning to them. And it also kind of gives them that sense of independence. Like, I created this, I did this, this was me. So I like that. And then you can also guide the children with those open-ended questions, if necessary. Sometimes I put a picture with the text, sometimes I don't. It just depends. Obviously, you want to make sure that the picture is clear and represents the meaning of the story. Sometimes you can choose like an actual picture. Like, I've had the teachers take pictures of the kids, in the classroom doing certain things, and then, they'll send that to me, and then I could put that into my social story. But here's some really good websites, socialthinking.com. And like I said earlier, Carol Gray's social stories, her website's awesome. And then another thing that I like to play are barrier games. Most of the time I play with my barrier games with my a little bit older kids. So I use a lot of the social stories and peer groups with my preschoolers, even though you could use that with any age. Just on my caseload this year, this is what I'm finding is most successful, is these barrier games are usually for my 2nd graders to my 6th graders. They love, I put Guess Who up here because this is the one game that they always ask me to play. And another one is Battleship, which could be a little bit tricky. So for Battleship, that would be definitely for your older kids. But those are just two examples that we use in therapy. But it also, barrier game is definitely a great tool for speech and language intervention. Again, you could pull that language from, your environment and utilize that. You could work on speech sounds too. But you want to make it fun. And the students, they love to play games. They always ask me, oh, I want to play a game. Yes, let's do that. Let's do this. And then you have the facilitator there or the teacher's aide to help the student on the other end with that barrier game. So what it is, it's a great way to incorporate your expressive skills, receptive skills. It's a way to utilize those social skills by taking turns at asking and answering questions. But what it does involve is putting that physical barrier between you and the other player while you try to duplicate the other's picture scene or try to guess like what they're talking about. Like that's what we do in Guess Who. You can see that there's people there and you're giving some clues, they're answering the question and you have to guess what person they have, but you can't see anything. So there's that barrier there. But it also is an activity that really involves listening carefully and following directions. So that's why for me, on the kids on my caseload right now, it really is better for the older kids. So I'm just going to go through this very quickly. I think I pretty much summed it up, but a barrier is placed between the two players so that neither can see the other player's scene. You can use whatever it is, a file folder, a box. What's nice is about Battleship is there's already that barrier there because when you open it up, it has that screen that goes up. One player places an item or an object onto their scene, giving specific, detailed verbal instructions to the other player about what the object they are playing with or who the person could be, where they are placing it, how they are placing it. So there's where those WH questions come in handy and those listening skills. And then the opposite player just has to listen carefully and attempt to place the object in the exact same place, or figuring out who they're talking about when you're playing Guess Who by putting that person down. And you're encouraging them to ask questions. You're encouraging them for clarification. And then you repeat this until all the items are completed or all the items are placed where you need them to be. Or in Guess Who, all those people are down except that one person is remaining. And then you want to see, were they able to guess who my person was by listening to my answers and asking the right questions. So these are some helpful websites that I thought would be helpful for you. Whenever you have time, you can go and look, socialthinking.com, Carol Gray. The next comes, this is a really good one, Allison Forrest. She has a really good, cute website with a ton of social ideas. And then speechandlanguagekids.com. So now I'm going to turn that over to Karen, and she is going to be addressing middle school and high school students, targeting their pragmatics and communication skills.
Hi, am I on? Am I good? Okay. All right, so I'm Karen Hayner, and I am going to be talking about some activities to use with older kids. And as we mentioned earlier, a lot of these activities can go across the board. A lot of the older kids still enjoy some of the things that are geared for younger kids. So it just depends on your student. So the first activity is role-playing using scripts. My students love to act things out, and I haven't had groups since COVID, but I can take part of it, or sometimes the facilitator can join in, and you use the script to have a conversation and then talk about that conversation afterwards. The social acts conversation scripts is one that I use that has a conversation written out. And I'll read an example between two people. Damien says, "Hey, Lucas, I haven't seen you in a while. What have you been up to?" And Lucas says, "Nothing really." Damien says, "Have you been busy with your basketball team?" Lucas says, "Nope." Damien says, "Oh, yeah? Is the season over?" "Yes." "Oh, I see. I'd like to play on a team next year, too." "Oh, okay. Well, I have to get home. Talk to you later. Bye." Bye. So you could read that and afterwards talk about what was going on in that conversation. Could that have been better? Did they stick to the topic? Did they take turns? Um, did you read the clues, like how someone else was feeling? So those are really good for thinking about these different elements of conversation, and then say, how could this be better? And then do it over again and have them put in the answers or the responses that they think they should have done. So along with role playing, for the next slide is, yeah, again, you can role play different social scenarios. This is from Behavior Basics, Social Scenarios. This is also, the last one and this one are actually, I think all of my materials today are from Teachers Pay Teachers. I just love their things. They're inexpensive and they have some really good things. In fact, I think this one is free, if I'm not mistaken. But you're given different social scenarios and the responses or one, at least one correct response. So you can go through it. For example, someone in front of you is chewing gum, and this is not allowed at school. What do you do? And the response would be, you should probably do nothing and try to ignore it. While a rule is being broken, it is not dangerous. So you can talk about that. You could even do a role play with it. Uh, if your student thinks there's another response that would be more appropriate or something what they would do, you could talk about that and talk about what the best response would be and why. So you could just talk about it or you could role play again. And so for the next one, the next activity, and these are all things that you can share on the screen too, the scripts or the scenarios that you put them on the screen so that the student can see it while you're doing it. Students love videos. Lots of times if I pull up a YouTube video, they'll say, "Oh, I've seen that before." But this activity is a companion for short films. It has a list of questions that go with, it has a link to short films on YouTube that are silent films. So we are depending on a lot of facial expressions and body language, the nonverbal things to understand these videos. So what you would do is review what inference and prediction mean and start watching the video. And then while you're viewing, the questions have places where you stop, like at 20 seconds in, you stop and then you would ask, how does the bunny feel? Why does he feel that way? And I think all of these are about, I think the longest one's about 5 minutes maybe or 6. So you go through the video with stopping and asking the questions. And then after viewing, there's a list of emotions vocabulary at the bottom. So that's a good chance to teach some more vocabulary words and some more ways to describe how you're feeling. And some of the
Karen,
examples. Yes.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but we've got the time right now. How about we have Kim click on those links just to show the folks what they look like, what you're describing.
That'd be great. Yes.
Yeah.
Sure.
Kim, are you able to do that?
Can you not see it?
I don't see it.
Okay.
It might have opened in another. Are you sharing your desktop, Kim, or are you just sharing the PowerPoint?
Let me see here. I'm trying to.
I mean, it should open in the PowerPoint itself. It shouldn't matter, but if it's not wanting to open, I'm not sure. I could try it from my end.
Yeah, could you do that?
Sure. You go ahead and stop sharing that, and I'll share mine.
Okay, I stopped.
See if I can get it to do. Sorry, folks. Give us just a second here.
No, that's great. It's good to have a visual.
I just was looking at the time and I thought, well, we can make that happen.
Well, sure.
Well, it should tell me. There we go. All right. It's just taking it a minute to click on the one I want. All right, let's see if I can get it to come up here. Is that opening in yours? No.
I'm not seeing
I don't see it.
Well, phooey. Let me try this one and see if we can get this one to work. Well.
So it works on my end, but you're not able to see it. So when I clicked on it, I was able to get onto that website, but then I wasn't able to share it with you.
Okay, well, we're going to try one other thing here. Hold on just a minute.
I hear the music.
Yeah. I'm getting it. Just taking me a minute. I'm glad we have the minute to do it here. Okay, let's see. Okay, can you all see this?
We can.
So this is the video that that Karen is talking about here. Let me see if I can make it bigger, full screen. Okay, this is her favorite one. So I'll let you take it from here, Karen, and I'll start it over.
Okay. So I have two sons who love video games. I can relate to this mom. But I'm just seeing a blank screen right now.
You're not seeing it?
No, I hear the music, but I just see a white screen.
Can anyone else see it?
No.
No. Well, that is quite interesting. I'm going to try one more time, folks, and then we're just going to have to say, go to that link on your own when you have a minute.
Yeah.
Let's see. Can anyone see it now?
Yes.
Yes, it's not playing. But
good. All right, here we go.
okay.
I'll start it over so everyone can see what you were talking about there, Karen.
Sure. So, and it's silent. It's just the music. So. So kids watch and it's one of the questions stops at 19 seconds in and says, what is this person thinking? And then at this point it says, who is playing the video games? And how are the people related? Now it's like, what is mom thinking? And At 50 seconds in, I don't see the time, but I've done this enough. I can kind of figure it out. What does the mom want at this point? And where did the boy go? And so how does she feel now? And does the boy understand what his mom wants? Where is the light coming from? What will happen next? And the whole time you're just hearing music. So you don't hear a scream or anything like that. You're just watching. So why, the next question is, why is she so angry? And what will happen next? What are the people who are watching thinking? How does she feel? And what does she see? What is the boy doing? And will she keep trying? So that's the end of the video. But then at the end, at the bottom, there's a vocabulary box. And the vocabulary words are unaware, hypnotized, annoyed, hopeful, cheerful, exasperated, optimistic, and horrified. And so what you would do is go over the vocabulary words and talk about what they mean, and then watch the video again and look for moments when the characters may have felt one of these emotions and explain why. And then you can ask if they have any other words or emotions to add to the list. So they've enjoyed these. There's several of them. They're good. They're good for starting some discussions too. And that's the companion for short films also on Teachers Pay Teachers.
Can you all see this?
I do.
The PowerPoint? Okay, great. Just making sure.
Oh, thank you. I'm so glad we got to do that.
Yeah.
So, okay. So for the next activity, I couldn't mention activities without mentioning games. And I found this poster. It's a freebie, also on Teachers Pay Teachers. I thought it was great for anytime somebody says, "You play games all day." So, we all hear that sometime or another, but these have great reasons why. And of course, we all know that we target a lot of the pragmatics and social skills through playing games, and it's a natural setting to target those things. These are some websites, just more. I feel like you can't have too many games. But these are things that you can open up and then share them on the screen. And you can be in control, or if you have a student that you can give control of the mouse, that they won't go crazy with it. Some kids, I really can't do that. But if you can do that, then they're a little bit more involved that way too. This one, the toy theater, is geared, I think, a little bit for younger kids, but again, older kids still like some of those things. So just whatever your student is into and responds to. Okay, so for the next one, okay, I wanted finally to talk about that while we work on pragmatics to help kids develop social skills and to fit in, there are growing movements for autism acceptance, the neurodiversity point of view. This views people with autism as having learning and thinking differences, and also other neurodiverse types, like ADHD is one that's mentioned, but it's thinking differences as opposed to the traditional view of neurological differences being disorders. And there are several articles in our April edition of the ASHA Leader that address the growing movement for neurodiversity and acceptance. One of them was Academic Edge. The Keene University offers a neurodiversity specialization in autism in their graduate program. And another one was When a Coworker is Atypical, Can We Be Flexible? And it discusses acceptance and understanding in the workplace. And many large companies have programs now for recruiting, interviewing, and hiring autistic employees. And there's a link we'll get to in a minute. And another one of the articles that I feel like pertains to today's talk, Reconceptualizing. Oh, can you click back just a sec? It's to the last slide. There we go. Thank you. Reconceptualizing how autistic children bond socially. Aaron Fink, a speech pathologist, discusses asking children with autism what they want from friendship and then teaching social skills as needed in a natural context. She noted that a lot of kids, you work on things in therapy and in the therapy setting, and then they can demonstrate that they understand sticking to the topic and turn taking and all the goals that we work on, but it doesn't necessarily lead to more friendships and inclusion or just these, I guess, friendship. So she talks about having natural settings or contexts, like say a gaming group where kids get together and it's a natural context, and then you can see who they're drawn to, potential friendships, what social skills might be needed to be worked on in that kind of a setting. So that's something that we can keep in mind when working on pragmatics. Okay, so now I'm ready for the next slide. So these are some more websites to help if you want some more information on neurodiversity. Autistic Not Weird is a site it's insight from an autistic teacher. And I don't have this one on here, but there's an autistic speech pathologist named Rachel Dorsey, and her site is Dorsey, DORSEYSLP.com. And she has a good blog where she writes about some of the goals we work on and some of these things from an autistic person's point of view. Autism awareness, autism acceptance. The American Autism Society this month, April, is Autism Awareness Month, but they are endorsing a shift from acceptance to, or from awareness to acceptance. Instead of being aware and talking about this is a disorder that we need to find a cure or we need to fix, they're saying let's teach people about autism and lead to acceptance. This is a site from monster.com that discusses some of the companies that are developing programs for hiring autistic employees. And Varsity Tutors, we discovered this when my son needed help for Spanish, but they're an online tutoring service, but they have classes that are, most of them are free, and some of them have a small fee that anybody can sign up to take or to sit through. And they had one with Microsoft where representatives from Microsoft talked about their program for recruiting, interviewing, and then mentoring autistic employees. So these are things for if you're curious or if you have older students, their parents, and they may be interested in these too. And that concludes my part of the presentation.
All right. Thank you, Karen and Kim. Thank you so much for the work and diligence you put into showing all of us some of the things that work for you in this area that I know I personally have struggled with in the past because it can be so changeable depending on the student. Today, what can you take away from our session? First of all, we talked about elementary students, and we hope that now you can understand the components of social communication, or just, I'm sure you've all had classes on that, but it's always nice to have a reminder. We hope that you will possess some extra knowledge needed to create an appropriate social story for children of all developmental and understand ways that peer groups can address many topics and different language skills to engage students, as Kim showed us. For high school students and middle school, we hope that you can now utilize some distance learning activities such as role playing and examining social scenarios to increase your students' self-awareness and perspective taking. I loved that video of Glued, and I think that would be a really, really neat way to get some insight from your students. And also just kind of an overall awareness and acceptance that neurodiversity is a difference and not a deficit that needs to be fixed. When Karen mentioned that, I was thinking about, just personality differences. I'm a very social being and my husband isn't. And if I were to, project what I want out of a social interaction onto him, that wouldn't necessarily be appropriate for him. So, I think those are the kinds of things we really need to ask ourselves. And I agree with Karen where she said, finding out what the students want from their social interactions. And then make it fun, determine your students' favorite topics and games, and then select an activity that they help you to select so that they really feel some ownership. It keeps them interested and gives them a sense of independence as well, even your young learners. And then group activities such as games, making a craft, working on a project, those all provide opportunities for social interaction, communication skill building, and making friends. And so, these are the things that we hope that you can take away from today. And again, all of the links are live in even though I wasn't able to get a couple of them to open in my window, they should be live for you when you get this PowerPoint when it's uploaded. So feel free to check out some of those resources. Okay, any questions? I'm going to open the chat here, and Karen, you and Kim be ready to answer some if there are any. Let me see if I can look at the chat while I'm still on my PowerPoint. That's the tricky part.
I'm not seeing any right now.
Okay, no questions so far. Well, I'm going to go ahead and go over the next few slides about turning in your survey and everything. And then if any questions pop up, Libby, you just let me know, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, oops. So first of all, we're going to talk about, we're going to be having telepracticing again for our last one for this school year, May the 21st. again from 1 to 2 o'clock. So be sure to join us next time. We'll have one more topic to discuss with you before summer break. So there's a little difference here in your submissions. If you'll notice in the big rectangular box at the bottom, ASHA has changed their requirements of us when it comes to obtaining certification. Obtaining continuing ed for these telepracticing sessions. And so it would be really helpful if you could go ahead and submit a Scantron again. Even if you did in January or February. I know in March we had told you you didn't need to, but please go ahead and do that again. And you're going to submit a Scantron and an attendance verification form. There's a link to that verification form right there. Again, the deadline for submission is May the 5th at midnight. Or I guess if you get really technical, 11:59 on May the 5th, right, Libby?
And Sally, it's not submitting a Scantron. They're submitting the information that would go on a Scantron.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, but they don't have to do a Scantron and scan it to me and mail it to me. ASHA's letting us get that information from them in the form of a survey. And then we submit it all together on an Excel spreadsheet. And so it's actually providing the information that's on the Scantron, and the survey will ask you, and what's really weird about that is we're sending out certificates from this spreadsheet, and we're sending out and we're applying for ASHA CEUs for those of you who want it. And so you would, if you're wanting both, you would need to put your name twice. One would be what you want on your certificate, and the other one would be what ASHA requires. So if you are doing ASHA CEU registry, you'll have a little bit longer to fill out, but I'd appreciate it because otherwise I would be inputting your information from your Scantrons, and there's always the risk of mistakes.
Got it. Thank you for clarifying that. And the next slide here is Libby's contact information where you can send this to her. So, all righty. And then one last slide has our contact information on it. As I always say every month that we do this, you please feel free to reach out to us. We are always happy to answer any questions or provide any resources that we have found helpful. We've tried to do that in our presentation, but if you have more specific questions, please feel free to reach out to any of us. And I'll ask one more time if there's any questions, and then that's all we have for you today.
This has been wonderful. I think a lot of us have wondered, well, how do you do that, virtually? And really great ideas.
Thank you. Thanks again to Kim and Karen for all that they shared.
Yes.
This is
You're very
Leanne,
welcome.
Sally.
Thank you for asking
you guys
to present. You're very welcome, everybody.
Yes,
thank you guys so much.
Anybody have questions? Last call. Well, I thank you guys. Thank you. Yes.
Well, it was our pleasure to be here, and we'll look forward to seeing you next month.
Right. Wow. It's hard to believe a year has gone by.
Isn't it? Yeah.
It's been the year.
In some ways, it feels like it's been really long, and in some ways, it has gone by fast because we've been scrambling to do different things every month, it seems. So yeah.
I know. Yes. Well, thank you all so much. It was a great presentation.
Thank you. Everybody have a great weekend.
You too.